Hello and welcome back to Invincible Asia. I'm George Clark and this is my audio commentary for Jackie Chan's awesomely entertaining and classic Project A, released on this day, December 22nd, just a mere 42 years ago, which is just crazy to think. Now, I know we've had umpteen audio commentaries on this gem over the years, from Hong Kong Legends' original DVD release to the 88 Films' gorgeous 4K UHD release, but given the date that I'm putting this out there, I thought it would be great to talk about and watch with you. Not to mention that it's an absolute favourite of mine that I never tire of watching. So, written, directed by and starring the man himself, the film is set in 19th century old Hong Kong that tells the story of Dragon Ma, a sergeant of the Hong Kong Coast Guards who is about to lead his men into battle with local Chinese pirates. But after getting into fights with their rival faction, the Hong Kong Police Force, and seeing their ships blown up right before the mission, the Coast Guards are disbanded and forced to join the Hong Kong Police as regular officers. But Police Captain Chi has it in for Dragon Ma, and after a big bust-up and arrest at a well-known gangsters nightclub, Ma quits the force. Of course, that same day, Ma runs into his old friend Fei, a small-time crook and gambler who convinces Ma to join his escapades. But fate works its magic and brings Dragon Ma full circle, eventually bringing the Coast Guards back into action and setting out to stop the pirate king Sammo. Now, if you haven't already seen Project A, then I'm only guessing that you're either a new Jackie Chan fan, have been living under a rock, spent time in prison, or been abducted by pirates. But that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Of course, the film is laced with countless and incredible action scenes, some genuinely hilarious comedy moments, strong drama, and gorgeous set pieces. All in all, this is one of Jackie's best films, although I would say avoid the re-edited US version from Miramax by all costs because it does not deliver the same wow factor as the original version or even the original 80s UK video release does. I found that out the hard way when I rented it in Missouri many moons ago, and I hated it. And here he comes. What an entrance. So this particular version I'm watching and talking about is the more commonly watched 1 hour 46 minute version, only because it's more widely available in comparison to the fantastic Taiwanese extended version that gives us about 9 or 10 extra minutes to enjoy, recently released in 4K by 88 Films as mentioned. So this is Captain Chi, a man who really takes a disliking to Dragon Ma from this moment on and crosses paths with him many times, played by the wonderful Quan Hoi-san, a Cantonese opera performer who began his film career back in 1949 and went on to star in over 180 films before suffering from a stroke in 2001, which forced him to retire before he eventually passed in 2006. But what an actor. I mean, he's a face you may recognise from classics such as The One-Armed Swordsman, Crazy Horse, Intelligent Monkey, Kid from Kwantung, Brothers from Walled City, Shaolin and Wu-Tang, The Man from Holland, My Heart is That Eternal Rose, Mission of Condor, Lee Rock, Casino Tycoon, Hard Boiled, Hero Among Heroes, and Young and Dangerous 5, among many others. Oddly, he does come back in Project A Part 2, but this time as the Navy captain, since Lau Hock-Suen had died just after making this. But still very odd why Jackie chose to do that, instead of keeping him as the same character. Regardless, I have always loved this scene. It has always had me in stitches. Jackie's attitude is just hanging right out of him. And that crunch when he sits down. So here we are, opening on Mars and Taibo, while entering one of the most exciting bar fights ever filmed, in the East or West. I just love this scene, and I know many of you do too. It's just so wonderfully put together, a good mix of slapstick and stunt work between the Navy and the police that gives us a who's who of faces up and coming in the Hong Kong film world at that time. Of course, a number of these are stunt players from both Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung's stunt teams at that time, some of whom will double up as pirates later in the movie. Another thing I must mention before I forget is the incredible music and score contained throughout this film. It's just friggin' fantastic, with plenty of memorable riffs and tunes, like this one introducing Yuen Biao's character to the party. Such a cool role for him. But yes, the great Michael Lai Sutin is the man to thank for the music, unfortunately now passed. Interestingly though, Lai actually started life in the industry as an actor way back in the early 1950s, something he continued to do right through to 2012, but more so in cameo roles and bit parts later in life. You would probably know him as the guy trying to park his car in Jackie Chan's Police Story, as Jackie skids into place outside the courts, or maybe as the maestro in Project A2, or by his cameo at the police station in Miracles. Regardless, he got into composing around the late 1970s, delivering the scores and music for classics such as the aforementioned Jackie Chan titles, as well as Armour of God, Police Story 2, My Lucky Stars, Naughty Boys, Rouge, The Inspectors Wear Skirts, Stage Door Johnny, and Dragons Forever. But he was also behind the music on films like On the Wrong Track, Lawyer Lawyer, The Dead and the Deadly, Duel to the Death, City War, and plenty more. Now, the man egging on the Coast Guards is the great Paul Wong-Kwan, a popular player of many Jackie Chan films around that time, but also a member of the Jackie Chan stunt team, who also works as one of the fight directors here and doubles up roles as the guy with the ladder during the bicycle chase later on. Earlier in his career, he starred in a number of Shaw Brothers films like Shaolin Rescuers, The Daredevils, Fighting Fool, etc., and first worked with Jackie on The Young Master. Of course, over the years, he has appeared and worked on many other Hong Kong productions, from Tiger Cage and In the Line of Duty 4 to God of Gamblers and Fight Back to School, eventually returning to this kind of setting for his final role as a pirate in Once Upon a Time in China 5. Now, while we do have lots of comedy strewn throughout the film, it's characters like these two, Mars and Taibo, in scenes like this that really stick in your head. Their antics in Project A are almost cartoony to some degree, but I mean that in a good way. Even though I kinda didn't get it as a younger kid, I just love this scene with the PP whistles. It cracks me up, and of course just builds up the angst for the fight that's about to come. But it's brilliantly put together, with all the Coast Guards getting carried away, and one of them reaching for his cop friend's whistle. Putting more salt on the wounds, so to speak. I mean, it's like a more livelier version of an old Wild West saloon fight. Now, of course, by this stage of the game, Jackie had been in the business for about 2 decades already, starting as a child actor in the early 60s, before going on to work as an extra, stuntman or bit player in classics like The Blade Spares None, The Golden Lion, Fist of Fury and Hapkido, among many others. But in 1973, when the world was going mad for Bruce Lee and Jackie was around 18 or so, he was given his first few tries at playing a leading character and honing his skills as a fight director. Now, the first of these was Not Scared to Die, released in the UK as Eagle Shadow Fist, or sometimes as Fist of Anger, a film typical of its time set around the Japanese invasion of China in World War II. As cheap and rough as all its releases have been, I quite enjoy it for what it is, and Yuen Chung-yan handles the fight action. That same year, the same director, Chu Mu, would next have him star as a bad guy in the Charlie Chin and Yuen Chu-led action drama The Heroine, released in the UK as The Young Tiger, and later again as Rumble in Hong Kong. I wonder what they were trying to capitalise on. Yuen Chung-yan would return to choreograph, although Jackie would also gain a credit alongside him. Now, interestingly, and although most people believe that Snake and the Eagle's Shadow was the first time that Jackie had ever worked with the Yuen clan, this was actually the period when all that started, with them both working as choreographers. And here we go, let the fun begin! So, as mentioned, you have both of those movies with Yuen Chung-yan as the leading action director, but also in 1973, Jackie would appear in The Awakened Punch for director Fong Lung-seung and Fists of the Double K, both of which, this time, had Yuen Woo-ping and Yuen Chung-yan working as the martial arts directors. Actually, now I think about it, he also worked under them both in 1972's The Bloody Fist, I mean, they clearly saw potential, with Jackie also appearing in and handling the action choreography for Michael Chan Man and Bolo Young's Freedom Strikes a Blow that same year, probably better known in the West as Chinese Hercules. Oh, this is just so good. I love how this all kicks off. Like, all hell breaks loose, though without it ever being overly choreographed and staged. It's really like a showcase for Jackie, Yuen, and the stunt guys to show their all and go wild. Obviously, with plenty of comedy moments inserted to break that up. For example, Taibo with his spaghetti looking for the guy that stuck it in his face earlier. So yes, 1973, aside from the previous projects, Jackie starred as the leading man in the more popular and enjoyable Cub Tiger from Kwantung, more widely known as Master with Cracked Fingers in the West. Again, another underrated piece and pretty enjoyable for the most part, but it still wasn't the right time for Jackie and he returned to playing bit parts yet again, jumping between Shaw Brothers and Golden Harvest for films like Facets of Love, None But the Brave, or Kung Fu Girl with Cheng Pei Pei from director Lo Wei, Enter the Dragon, The Young Dragons, and The Golden Lotus, with director Chu Mu bringing him back for non-action roles in his raunchy comedies All in the Family and No End of Surprises, two films which some unashamed content creators on YouTube have tried to use as clickbait to claim that Jackie was a porn star before he was famous. What utter bollocks. Now, not long after, John Woo and Sammo brought Jackie on board for The Hand of Death, which I still quite enjoy today, and soon after that, the Lo Wei era would start to create the next phase of Jackie's career. Of course, a few years later, with flops, Hopping Countries, Triad Problems, and more flops, Jackie would eventually re-team with the Yuen clan and seasonal films for his star-making and groundbreaking Snake in the Eagle's Shadow and Drunken Master, before eventually breaking free from Lo Wei and signing with Golden Harvest. Oh, I have to interrupt myself because this is such a gorgeous little sequence between Jackie and Yuen. The acrobatics and kicks are just sweet. I mean, they make it look so simple with how they just glide and move, and again, not forgetting to give us some laughs because overall, it's not really supposed to be a serious fight. Now, after signing on with Golden Harvest, of course, this led to the amazing Young Master and Jackie's first attempts at Hollywood with Battle Creek Brawl and The Cannonball Run, which didn't do the job unfortunately. But after Dragon Lord gave him disappointing box office results, Jackie, along with Sammo Hung, realised that the traditional kung fu film was dying and something had to change. Hence Project A. Of course, Sammo had already toyed with changes, making modern action comedies such as the brilliant Carry On Pickpocket and Winners and Sinners, but I do think that Project A was the turning point for many filmmakers and fans of Hong Kong cinema. So earlier I briefly mentioned the name of this gentleman in white, a Mr. Lau Hock-Suen, born in 1910 and died in early 1983, right after he starred here in Project A, so he didn't even get to see the finished product unfortunately. Regardless, this man does a wonderful job here and is without a doubt the most prolific person in the film, with a shocking 541 film titles to his name. I mean, that is just outrageous. From 1934 to 1983, almost 50 years of work, and not only that, he directed 7 features along the way between 1950 and 1960. Just crazy. Of course, this wouldn't be the first time he had starred in a film with Sammo Hung, having just worked with him the year before in the aforementioned and very entertaining Carry On Pickpocket. What a legend though, and what a film to go out on. So back in the 1980s, not long after we had gotten our first VHS player, visiting the video store was one of the biggest highlights of my childhood. Sorry, again, I need to stop and mention that these black bondage-like outfits had me in fits of laughter back in the day, and still do make me smile to be honest. Now, you have to remember, I grew up in the Belfast Troubles, a time when bombs and bullets were pretty much a daily occurrence in my neighbourhood. So for me, film really was a means of escape, and mine was in Kung Fu and Jackie Chan films. but Project A was one that I just kept going back to time and time again, and it's just crazy how I love it just as much today. Of course, the first thing that caught my attention was the fantastic artwork on the American Imperial video cover, a rip-roaring adventure on the old China coast with its gorgeously displayed array of stills on the back in the form of a Chinese character, I suppose, to some degree. Of course, today I have a number of copies of this classic, such as the same X-Rental video, as well as the French VHS X-Rental, the Made in Hong Kong video release, 2 Hong Kong Legends DVD releases, such as the Special Edition single release and Project A collection, the Japanese DVD release, the Project A collection Nova Media Blu-ray release from South Korea, the nice Eureka Blu-ray box set of both films, and the awesome 88 Films 4K UHD collection. Just a few, but I'd definitely pick up other versions if I ever came across them. Now, here's a question for you. What connects Project A to Donnie Yen's Iron Monkey 2? Answers on a postcard. Or I could just tell you, I guess. The answer is via one of its 2 assistant directors, the first of which was the talented Edward Tang, co-writer of this and writer of classics such as The Magnificent Butcher, The Peacock King, and most of Jackie's finest from The Young Master to Chinese Zodiac. Just to jump in, this scene highlights some pretty impressive model work here. So Tang also served as the assistant director on The Young Master and Dragon Lord, as well as this, and produced Armour of God, Police Story 3 Super Cop, and Drunken Master 2. It's probably well worth noting also that he did direct one feature, Red Zone from 1995, which starred Jackie Chan stunt team members Kenny Ho and Ken Lo, as well as others, along with Yu Rongguang and Wes Lee, with Nicky Lee handling the fight action. So now we see the beginning of the antagonist story, the pirates and the gangsters, and the setup for the rest of the plot pretty much. The guy playing the boss man show is the late Wong Wai, who had been acting since the early 1960s, and after this would star with Jackie in his Police Story 2 and Miracles, but also other Hong Kong greats like Proud and Confident with Andy Lau, Vampire Buster with Jackie Chung, Devil Hunters with Moon Lee, and others with a role in Andy Lau's future X-Cops, marking his last just a year before his death. And joining him here is the fantastic and legendary Lee Hoi-san, longtime favourite of many Hong Kong film fans, who I will talk about later, and standing beside him, Jackie Chan's stunt team member Danny Choi, both of which have since left us, with Lee only passing in the second half of 2024. Of course, both are always a joy to see in any movie, and both did start their film careers at the Shaw Brothers studio, kind of racking up a similar amount of films throughout their time there, although Lee Hoi-san definitely became more successful as an actor for sure. I've always loved this setup and that window. I mean, it's gorgeously done and very colourful, but I wonder what the initial intention was as part of the film. Was it so that those in the office could look out without being noticed too clearly, or just to bring more colour to the scenes? Like, genuinely, the art design here and the set piece is beautifully done. You just know that this guy has money. So here we have the introductory scene of the great Sammo Hung, opening in a gambling den with the wonderful and late Wu Ma in somewhat of an extended cameo, and the very prolific Fung Ging Man, a face you should know considering he starred in almost 520 films from 1937 through to 1990. Films like Heart of the Dragon, Rosa, Magnificent Warriors, and Pedicab Driver. And there he is, the legend himself, pinching another cigarette before joining these 2 gambling cheats. Now, of course, these 3 actors would have crossed paths many times by this point, and continued to do so afterwards. So while he may not have seemed as busy in terms of acting, with Wu Ma starring in over 300 film productions from the early 1960s, he did go a few steps further, working as an assistant and co-director for Chang Che at the Shaw Brothers Studios, worked as the planner on many of Sammo Hung's productions between 1984 and 1994, and also produced and directed almost 50 of his own features, from Wrath of the Sword in 1970 through to Shigehoshi in 2014, just prior to his death, but also including the likes of Sammo Hung's The Dead and the Deadly, Stage Door Johnny, Yuen Biao's Picture of a Nymph, Kickboxer, and Circus Kids, among many others. But yes, it's such a fun introductory scene for Sammo, and I do love his character of Fei in this film. I just wish he and Yuen Biao had returned for the sequel. I mean, it's absolutely awesome, but they probably just would have given it so much more. Of course, 1987 was a big year for everyone, with Sammo and Yuen starring in Eastern Condors, which was a huge project, not to mention a film that absolutely should have starred Jackie Chan, but Sammo also had 3 other films on the go that year, while Biao just starred in Condors. Of course, Jackie himself had no plans to make Project A Part 2, but the Japanese Emperor was such a fan of the first, he kind of encouraged Jackie to go in that direction. Of course, the other guy at the table wearing glasses is Man Nai-tik, an actor who appeared in 160 films, although usually as an extra or bit player, much like this, and again has crossed paths with these guys many times over the years in many Shaw Brothers productions, but also some of the aforementioned films, and even pops up in Jackie Chan's Miracles. Oh, this is such a cool scene. Nice stunt through the table, but also the comedy element with Sammo saving his winning hand, about to reveal it to Wu Ma and take his prize after he manages to scoop up his final piece. What balance! Hey, full house, no more bullshit then. Oh my god, look at Wu Ma's expression as he disappears here. And Sammo's own reaction to having that win knocked right out of his hand. But I love that transition. Nicely done. Now, getting back to the assistant directors, the second assistant director of Project A was a Mr. Chu Lo Kong, and he was the one that went on to direct the unfortunate guilty pleasure that is Iron Monkey 2. That actually would have been his third directorial effort after A Wily Match in 1980, also known as Four Hands of Death, and The Buddhist Spell in 1993, which starred Charlotte Chung Man and Wu Ma. But he also served as the executive director to Jackie on Fearless Hyena, and had appeared alongside him before that in Shaolin Wooden Men, then Dragon Fist, and Fearless Hyena 2. But he also worked as the assistant director on Shaolin Wooden Men and Dragon Fist, as well as pretty much all of Jackie's low-way films. This, of course, then Wheels on Meals, Police Story, Miracles, Stage Door Johnny, Story of Kennedy Town, Operation Condor, and Crime Story. Aside from Jackie's projects, he also worked as the assistant director on Yuen Wu-ping's Legend of a Fighter and Miracle Fighters, and also on Wu Ma's Kickboxer with Yuen Biao, aka Once Upon a Time in China 6, aka Once Upon a Chinese Hero, etc, etc. Actually, that's a film I really do hope we see restored very soon on Blu-ray. So in essence, Jackie had a pretty good team behind him on Project A, past colleagues both in front of and behind the camera that really could get to grips of how he worked and what he wanted. However, this would have been the first time cinematographer Chung Yu-cho worked for Jackie. He did shoot no end of surprises, but obviously Jackie just had a small role in that. But prior to this, he had also shot films like Lo Wei's The Tattooed Dragon, Chinatown Capers and Yellow-Faced Tiger, or Slaughter in San Francisco, Private Eyes for the Hoy Brothers, Bruce Lee's Game of Death, John Woo's awesome Last Hurrah for Chivalry, and Sammo Hung's brilliant horror comedy The Dead and the Deadly, among others. But Project A would take him on to work with Jackie on films like Wheels on Meals, The Protector, Police Story, Naughty Boys, Armour of God, Project A2, Dragons Forever, Police Story 2, Inspectors Wear Skirts 2, Angry Ranger, Operation Condor, and Drunken Master 2, as well as other Hong Kong films like Prince of the Sun, Those Merry Souls, White Storm, and more. And to be honest, I do think Project A is shot pretty damn well, and in 4K, looks beautiful. Of course, we must also give kudos to the props guys, art directors, scenery guys, etc. for helping to make things look as genuine as they do. Oh, I love this reveal here. Jackie's expression is brilliant in knowing that they just went at it in the bar fight. Now he's in a bit deeper than he imagined. This actually was a busy year, 1983, the year of production, a busy one for Yuen Biao, who had Zoo, Warriors of the Magic Mountain, co-starring Sammo of course, a cameo in Winners and Sinners where he gets to trade fast moves with Jackie while having his other Zoo Warriors co-star Moon Lee hanging off his arm, and led the way in the very fun football martial arts comedy The Champions, where he faced off against the great Dick Wei, who plays the big baddie here. But I do feel that his role here in Project A was the first to let him play a perhaps more mature role, I guess, since he had started becoming more of a leading man only a few years before. Of course, he had played as a stuntman and extra for many years alongside the likes of Jackie, Sammo, Lam Chin-ying and Corey Yuen Kwai in lots of earlier Golden Harvest flicks like Hapkido, Enter the Dragon, When Taekwondo Strikes, etc., but also in other kung fu flicks for Shaw Brothers, seasonal and independents like 14 Amazons, Cub Tiger from Kwantong, The Master of Kung Fu, Secret Rivals, Shaolin Wooden Men and Fatal Flying Guillotines. Around the mid to late 1970s, he would start to gain some slightly bigger character roles in films like The Hand of Death, Challenge of the Masters, Invincible Armor, Snuff Bottle Connection, and Sammo's own Enter the Fat Dragon, Dirty Tiger Crazy Frog and Warriors 2, before Sammo himself delivered the classic Knockabout as a leading man showcase for the talented kung fu star. And I do love it. Although it's a generic kung fu comedy that were a dime a dozen at that time, it did give Yuen Biao the chance to shine and saw him deliver some moves that were just as impressive as Jackie Chan in Drunken Master. Of course, that same year, 1979, would see him impress once again as Wong Fei-hung's student Fun in Yuen Woo-ping's awesome Magnificent Butcher, before he would go back to entertaining us in supporting roles. 1980 saw him appear in Jackie Chan's Young Master, then an even smaller role in Sammo's The Victim, as well as a stunt double, and again in smaller dual roles in Game of Death 2, Tower of Death. Thankfully though, 1981 would bring him back to the forefront with two genuine classics of Hong Kong cinema, Yuen Woo-ping's Dreadnought and Sammo Hung's incredible Prodigal Son, still one of my all-time favourite Hong Kong movies today. Now, the two guards over Yuen Biao's shoulders through these scenes are Paul Wong, who we talked about earlier in the bar fight, and a young Chin Gar-lok, who had only been in the business about a year, appearing in films like The 82 Tenants, The Lady is Boss, and Fast Fingers, which starred his older brother, the handsome Chin Soo-ho, who had started a few years before him at the Shaw Brothers Studios. Of course, this would be the film that saw him become a prominent member of Sammo Hung's stunt team, going on to appear in most of his movies or those that he produced, doubling Jackie Chan when needed, working as the assistant martial arts director, then action director on many classics, becoming a leading man and bigger actor in the early 1990s, and eventually becoming a director in his own right, giving us films such as Aces Go Places 97, the very fun No Problem 2 with Yuen Biao, and the entertaining Golden Job in 2018. I mean, it's fair to say that he's done alright for himself and went on to produce the Kung Fu Stuntman documentary in 2020, which magically forgot about Jackie Chan. But anyway, for the uninitiated, Project A originally started life as Pirate Patrol, which is a pretty cool title I guess, but to save any other studios quickly pumping out films with pirate themes, he went for the more generic title of Project A. Of course, you only have to look at how many Snake and Eagle titles or Drunken Fist movies came out in, around and between the success of his two earlier films. Around the world, the film was originally released as Mark of the Dragon in the Philippines, but later released again as Superfly 2, obviously as a sequel to their first Superfly release, which was, in fact, Armour of God 2 Operation Condor. Very bloody bizarre. In Brazil, Project China. In France, The Sailor of the China Seas. In Germany, the Super Fighter, although Fearless Hyena is released as the Super Fighter 3. Interestingly, Norway have used both Pirate Patrol and another title that translates as The Pirate's Horror, while Sweden also went with Pirate Patrol. Now, surprisingly, even though it grossed over $14 million, setting a new record at its time of release, Project A was only the third highest grossing movie of 1983, although I'm going to say that given the time of release it had around the Christmas holidays, perhaps hindered that somewhat. Sammo's very own Winners and Sinners came in at number 2, of course co-starring Jackie Chan and featuring that cameo by Yuen, but it would be the wild and wacky Aces Go Places 2 from Cinema City that took the number 1 spot. Mind you, released in February as opposed to December, and with the added bonus of having the Lunar New Year filmgoers in full swing. But I'm not biased, I love them all. Also interesting to note that Choi Hark's Sioux Warriors from Magic Mountain didn't even make the top 10 that year, even with Sammo Hung and Yuen in it. Actually, now I think about it, 1983 was a pretty wild year for releases, with films like The 18 Bronze Girls of Shaolin, All the Wrong Spies, Angry Young Man, Attack of the Joyful Goddess, Black Magic with Buddha, Yuen-Biao's The Champions, Esprit d'Amour, Jackie's very own, but not really his own, Fantasy Mission Force and Fearless Hyena 2, Shaolin and Wu-Tang, and Tony Leung Kao-Fai's debut films, Burning of the Imperial Palace and its sequel, Rain Behind a Curtain. Of course, there were many more, but what a time to be alive. So in this brief briefing, we see Jackie centered between Mars and Taibo, two of his main buddies in the film. But if you look carefully, you'll also spot the likes of Shaw Brothers stars Bruce Tong, Lau Fong Sai, Hung San Nam and Xiao Yu, as well as Jackie Chan's stunt team member Benny Lai, who kicks ass in Police Story 2. So now we're coming up to one of my favourite scenes in the movie, the throwdown at the Gangsters Club, and immediately we see that Faye is in cahoots with the gangsters, although we're never under any illusions that this man stands for anything else but in trying to make a quick buck. Of course, Jackie, or Dragon Ma, and his team are warned not to cause any trouble, with Biao's Inspector Hong knowing fine well how wild they can be. I do love their outfits, however, I always found it strange why they were dressed like they were going in undercover, while the other two officers are in uniform. This is funny. Taibo in the dub, can you read? Now, isn't this a gorgeous set piece? I'm sure I saw it reused in another movie that was made after this, but it's left me now. Perhaps the awesomely fun and totally wild Cinema City film A Book of Heroes, starring Yukari Oshima and Yasuaki Kurata. I'm nearly sure it was that. Also, that was directed by Kevin Chu Yenping, who directed Fantasy Mission Force and later Island of Fire. Regardless, it would be a shame to tear this down straight after use, so I'm sure it was pulled into a few other productions along the way. So the guy here giving our heroes a lecture is the brilliant John Chung, also seen in Western films like Bloodsport, Double Impact and Dragon the Bruce Lee Story. Unofficial member of the Jackie Chan stunt team and brother to Johnny Chung, who was the official member. But John is a star in his own right and has been in some classics over the years. He does, in fact, return in Project A Part 2, but as a totally different character, which is fine, and was one of the tough baddies in Police Story 2 that gave Jackie a run for his money. He's got such a great look and rarely fails to entertain. Make sure you check out films like Kung Fu Master Named Drunk Cat, Riding Kung Fu, and Snake in the Monkey's Shadow to see him deliver some great Kung Fu action. He really hasn't done anything film-wise since the millennium though, which is a bit of a shame. Now, the guy that was with him, the club manager in the suit, is played by the popular Albert Law, who you would see in the likes of Hex After Hex, Hocus Pocus, Oil vs. Bumbo, Rosa, The Crazy Companies, and Last Hero in China, for example. But this guy with the wispy facial hair and bald head is the great Wan Fat, who has starred in a number of Jackie's films right up to Drunken Master 2, as well as doubling up as the assistant director on everything from Police Story to Dragons Forever. I love this scene. The use of the mirror is great and Jackie's moves are just friggin' sweet. Of course, the big guy they're after here is the late Hon Yi Sang, who unfortunately died at the age of 44. Starting his acting career at the age of 20, Han managed to rack up just under 80 films before passing. He doubled up as a martial arts director and production manager on many films over the years, returned in Project A Part 2, but as a different character all round. He later starred with Jackie in Police Story 3 Super Cop and again in Drunken Master 2 before passing in 1995. So here we go with the next big fight piece of the show, and here's Albert. They tell him to speak Chinese, to which he replies in his mother tongue, but in the original English dub, Albert replies, "Now look here, I speak proper English," before they smack him out of the way. But seriously though, just how amazing is this fight? Everyone involved takes such a beating. The stunt work, the moves, like Yuen, Biao and Jackie, they steal the show, of course. But Taibo and Mars here when they're taken out, oh my god. I mean, that is not easy. But yeah, everything about this is powerful. And Jackie's kicks are tremendous. Look, Jesus Christ. Of course, all the stuntmen are going to try and show off to their max abilities here to show that they are the best of the best here. But yeah, for me, Jackie steals it. Yuen Biao does get some great moments, really. I mean, I think he's fabulous in this fight scene, without a doubt. Just look at him go. But Jackie really shines, without a doubt. And one of the things, these kicks from Jackie are tremendous. Of course, there's a lot of stunt work involved in this fight scene, and that is what has always stood out to me. And oh my god, it's amazing. The speed and the agility. Look at that kick. The speed and the agility from both of these guys. Look at this. I remember trying this after watching this. Well, I mean, after watching a lot of Hong Kong movies when I was younger. Oh, Christ on a bike. I tried a lot of the stunts. I would often try to replicate what I watched on screen, not out of stupidity, but because I just wanted to be like this. Oh my god, the amount of staircases I threw myself down just to see if I could do it right. I mean, you do take a knock, believe it or not, hitting your head or your arms, your elbows, your knees off the banister rails, things like that, or getting stuck halfway down. That's the worst part. But yeah, I mean, everything we saw in this fight scene, me and my brothers, my best friend, we tried to replicate these stunts time and time again. And I'm sure a lot of people did, because that's the buzz you got from a Jackie Chan movie, from a Hong Kong movie, after you watched it, whether it was just a ninja movie or a Shaolin movie or whatever. You always got this buzz and you wanted to go out and try those moves. And that's exactly what me and my brother did. I remember my mum always coming in and shouting at us because we were banging each other off the wall. We were throwing each other across the room. It was fun for us. Now I can understand as a parent, if my kids were doing that, I'd be pretty pissed off. But, but it was because of films like this, and more specifically, because of fight scenes like this. And they were just incredible. That there shot, I do believe, was taken as a screen grab for the front cover of Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars, the original UK video release, if I can remember that correctly. It's been a while since I pulled that out there. You can see the dirty marks of Jackie's feet on the wall there where he pushed off in practice shots, of course. And again, John Chung taking the stairs here. But yeah, I mean, everyone is highly impressed. Look at this. Boom! And you can see that he is wearing some sort of protection in there. But that is still a sore fall, no matter how you're protected. Oh, we wire assist there. But no matter how you're protected, you're still going to get hurt here. There does seem to be a thin mat under that rug. And this, again, Jackie, just the way he spins, leaps, jumps here is incredible. Incredible. But we are going to see Han doubled. I think this is Sammo here. You can kind of tell from his body movement. It looks like Sammo took that fall on the chair. This is a different stunt guy again, because now Han looks like he's lost weight when he get hit in the shins. And I see him coming out the window here. It's a stunt double. It's a bit of a thinner Han for me. You can see that. Now this coming off the balcony is Sammo. Boom! And you look at that. That was an incredible stunt. And the reason I think and believe that it is Sammo is because I don't think anyone else there the size of Han would have been brave enough to do that. But also you can see from the hair, the way it flapped about, that it was Sammo Hung without a doubt. But what an incredible stunt, and just the way he hit that floor. If that went wrong, we wouldn't have had any more Sammo Hung. So anyway, for me, that's the first chapter of the movie over. Character introductions, the building of storyline, some great comedy and action set pieces, but now we start to see things change, and mainly due to the arrival of Sammo as Faye. Of course, this old friend is going to try and convince Dragon to help him steal some rifles, tricking the former Coast Guard cop into believing that his old boss is dealing in some shady shit. And it's an interesting theme considering that same year they played similar roles in the fantastic Winners and Sinners, with Sammo as the petty thief and Jackie as the cop. Actually, while I think about it, as unbreakable as these guys seemed around this time, isn't it just crazy to think that it was actually 8 years before both those films when these three actors worked together? 8 whole years since John Woo's Hand of Death before they all got together again. I mean, that's just crazy. We have this impression that Jackie, Sammo and Yuen were the best of friends, big brothers looking after each other, etc, etc. But yet, when you actually pull apart the timeline of the so-called Three Dragons, we really only got a 5-year window where things between them were actually fantastic. I do love how they decide who pays, inspired me and my friends as teens to sort things out in a similar fashion when we could afford it. Now, although they had grown up together at the Peking Opera School and worked on many films at the same time as stuntmen and bit players, then went on to impress us time and time again in their own films, from Drunken Master and Fearless Hyena to Iron-Fisted Monk and Encounters of the Spooky Kind, and Yuen in Knockabout and Zoo Warriors. Project A was really the first full feature that saw them star together as a defining force in nature that really gave us that iconic Three Dragons team-up we still love today. Of course, they shared the screen many times in pairs, mostly Yuen and Sammo, or Jackie and Sammo, or Jackie and Yuen, but this was the biggie, the film that really reshaped how Hong Kong action movies were made, with Jackie replacing Kung Fu with wonderfully choreographed street fighting and gobsmacking stunt work that is still talked about and praised as much today. But although they created some of the most iconic, influential and awe-inspiring fight scenes of action cinema, and their on-screen chemistry was undeniable, we really didn't get enough movies featuring these three amazing talents working together than you think. Of course, Project A was the start, as I said, but in 1985 we got a few from them, such as the epic and brilliant Wheels on Meals, My Lucky Stars and Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars. And then, in 1988, we got the last of their team-ups with the ironically titled Dragons Forever, the final film starring all three. But you've just got to wonder what really happened. Like, how could this groundbreaking and much-loved trio just fall apart after delivering one of their finest ever movies and go through the rest of their career never returning to work as the Three Dragons? I mean, yes, they would cross paths now and again in the years that followed, such as on TV specials, birthdays, and the funeral of their old master, Yuen cameoing in Miracles, Jackie and his Kid from Tibet, Sammo working with Jackie on Thunderbolt, Mr. Nice Guy, The Medallion, and Around the World in 80 Days, Biao behind the scenes doing action on Shanghai Noon or appearing in Robbie Hood, but never back as the trio. Of course, while Jackie moved on doing his thing and becoming a global superstar, Sammo and Yuen stuck together for the most part, at least until the mid-90s, but even that started to fizzle out. So I do often think what could have been had they all stuck together for a bit longer. I mean, could you imagine Jackie Chan in both Millionaires Express and Eastern Condors? Holy shit. Or Sammo as the big baddie in Police Story 3 Super Cop, or all together in First Strike? Might have made that a little bit more exciting. But yeah, we're all still waiting for them to get back together for one more movie, a final throwback to something like Project A. But it ain't gonna happen, unfortunately, and to be honest, I suppose I could say the same for Project A Part 2. I mean, I totally love it, without a doubt, one of my favourites, but the thought of having Sammo and Yuen show up to help Jackie save the day just would have been wonderful. Oh, how amazing does Jackie look there. Now, With this second chapter of the film, I kind of see Project A as a three-part act. You'll notice a severe lack of Yuen Biao here. Of course, alongside Jackie, he was a prominent figure of the first chapter. Now we get Sammo's character of Faye getting his time to shine. Yuen returns briefly during the clock tower stunt, but that's about it. Of course, the third and final chapter of the film brings them all together for the final showdown. And as I said before, we see things change as the film plays on. But I've always loved this scene, and more so teenage me, who would have loved to have played there. Mind you, now as an adult, the fear of falling between those floating logs and not getting back out has set in my head. But regardless, it's such a fun moment, with Dragon Ma having removed the red flag marker and stuck one to every other log in the water just to throw them off. But I do love Sammo's attitude and the wee scuffle that follows. Again, enhanced by Michael Lai's wonderful score. I love Sammo's wee jump here to get off. Boop. Of course, I'd like to have seen a much longer fight in this location, but I'm still pretty happy with that because, as we know, there's plenty more to come. Actually, when we were in Amsterdam and Rotterdam back in October of this year, 2025, my husband and I visited an open-air museum that had a lot of working windmills, old Dutch houses, etc. And one of them was actually a sawmill. We got to go inside and met the staff who showed us how to work the thing. And as we get down to the water to see where the logs were kept, I saw about 7 or 8 lined up, and this was the first thing that popped into my head. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't tempted to run across them, but it was completely out of the question. Mind you, if I ever come across something similar in a future production that I'm making, I might just pay homage to this classic by reenacting this scene for it. I'd be more than happy to do that. Don't know about the top hat. And I do love Sammo's expression as he runs off here. Now, did you know that Project A had a spin-off television show of 36 episodes, minus Jackie, Sammo and Yuen Biao, of course? Mind you, it was only about 20 years too late and does feature their Peking Opera School sister, Yuen Shu, the landlady from Kung Fu Hustle, in one of the main leading roles. Jackie is replaced by the fun and often overlooked Dickie Chung, and the rest of the cast is fleshed out by some great names including Lung Gar-yan, Wong Jing, who also wrote it, along with Edward Tang, Jillian Chung, Patrick Tam, and Alice Chan. I mean, honestly, it's not a show that I ever saw or can find, but it would be interesting to see. That said, it is a shame we never did get a third film in the series from Jackie. Now that would have been cool. Can you imagine? Maybe it would have been set around the very late 1800s, even the turn of the century, when the free port of Hong Kong was attracting people from all over China and Europe. I mean, there was bound to be some bad eggs in amongst that lot for sure. But racism was growing and British colonial policies were segregating the people. Did you know that they had a race law called the Peak Reservation Ordinance that stopped Chinese people from living on Victoria Peak and other elite areas? And even though there was a huge rise of British educated Chinese upper class, they still couldn't move into these areas. Then you had the bubonic plague hitting Hong Kong by 1894, no doubt leading to a lot of crime, with people trying to survive and criminals taking advantage of the situation. And then you had historical figure Dr. Sun Yat-sen, who was educated in Hong Kong before going on to lead the 1911 revolution. So yeah, without a doubt, there was enough going on to give way for a part 3. Anyway, it didn't happen, which is why we keep going back to these classics, and this particular scene is a great reason why. I just love this moment. I think it's set in Jackie's house or his home here. I mean, there's not much to it, let's be honest. This is not a man that lives in riches, but yes, the whole setup here is hilarious. A very slapstick comedy scene, and again, the acrobatics here from Jackie and the moves. You're going to get another one of those fantastic kicks coming up, but I love it. It's very, very quick. It's very fast, but it works. Look at that. Oh my God, what a wonderful kick. But yeah, then we get the gun to the cheek. That was very short-lived. Yeah, I mean, things like this are what sticks out in your head when you watch a movie like Project A. They're fast. They're like, I love that reaction when the gun goes off right in front of him. That is just fantastic. But yes, what a wonderful scene. And again, this trick from two old friends of arguing with each other so they can get out of a sticky situation. We've tried it ourselves at some point in our lives. Maybe not everyone. I know I have. Oh, what a beautiful punch. And again, this scene here, this handheld moment of the fight between the two of them, it really, really works well. And yep, there we go. And I haven't even talked about her yet. I will get to that in a second, I promise. But yes, a genuinely sweet, short and sweet fight scene. And even that wee roll, Jackie, of course, just had to keep going over there. Now, of course, I've yet to talk about the only real female lead of the movie, and that is the lovely Isabella Wong-Man-Ying, making her film debut role here playing Winnie Chick, and does a wonderful job overall, to be honest. Like many people here, she would return in the sequel, but in a different role, and with Jackie one last time on Police Story 2. After this, she did star alongside the great Kwan Hoi San in the Gordon Liu kung fu comedy The Young Vagabond, that also starred Jason Pai Pao, and again in a little-known horror movie that same year called Dead Curse. She starred in 10 films over 10 years, with her last being The Flirting Ghost. Of course, going straight into an action movie from a beauty pageant doesn't exactly mean you're going to handle everything that Jackie Chan throws at you, and I'm not too sure if this is Isabella doing the jump. Even the finish tries to hide her face as they run off, but she's still got a lot worse to go through. I do love this little cartoon run Jackie does to lead the gangsters away, but I just wish they had done this cut a bit better, or at least give him a shortcut to utilise at the time. Now, I think that this was a real village out in the new territories, not a set piece at the studios, and not somewhere we managed to visit when we were last in Hong Kong. You know, when I started making movies, I put a call out for a bunch of young wannabe stuntmen to come and join in, so I could train them in stunts, falls, moves, etc. This was back in 2007, and every one of them lived their lives for parkour. Oh, I was always amazed at Jackie's ability to scale that wall. I'd imagine that he had a wee wire attached there. Anyway, then I sat them down to this, Police Story, and many other Jackie Chan movies, just to make a point that this man was doing parkour long before it became a thing, and it didn't take them long to get the message. As you can see, this scene is a prime example of that. And you know, in hindsight, we were all doing it before parkour got a name and became a popular street sport, really. Every time we watched Jackie in action, or any countless amount of Hong Kong action movies, me, my brother, my friends, we'd all be out in the streets in our local forests, practicing what we saw, like I said, pushing ourselves to be as brave as Jackie Chan, and kicking the shit out of each other as we attempted to choreograph our own fights just for fun. We were ninjas, we were Shaolin monks, we were friggin' unstoppable. A bit like Jackie here as he tries to make his escape with a dummy on his back, which is just brilliant. I love the kicks he delivers along the way, and this scene when he rips the head off. Oh my god. Of course, his getaway only lasts less than a minute before he comes crashing into his old captain, which looks painful enough even as a small stunt. You know, at the age I was when I first saw this, Project A would have been the first Kung Fu or Hong Kong action film based on pirates. Of course, now I know that before that came The Pirate in 1973, a fun martial arts adventure flick starring Ti Lung, David Chang, and actually Bruce Tong, who appears in this. That was co-directed by Chang Che, Wu Ma, and Pao Shu Li for the Shaw Brothers studio, but it definitely wasn't as fun as Project A. Then, about 2 years after that, and under the Golden Harvest banner, we got Keen Ho's very entertaining pirate flick, The Valiant Ones, where Sammo Hung plays a pretty decent role as a Japanese pirate, and a young Yuen Biao and Mars pop up as his minions. In fact, rumour has it that Jackie Chan himself also worked on this as an extra, only to have his face hidden so that he could play different characters that would be killed off. I mean, I'm sure there were many other pirate-themed movies in the run-up to Project A from Hong Kong and Taiwan, given how huge their film industry... Oh, that looked pretty damn painful how they both landed. Oh, Jesus. But what a hilarious scene. And here we go, one of the greatest scenes in Hong Kong action cinema. I absolutely adore this. If I think of Project A, I go straight to this scene. There's a lot going on in Project A. There's a lot of great things, but for some reason, the bike chase always sticks out in my head. and I just adore it. I remember being like this, especially, yes, when the flick in the face, boom. I remember being in awe, thinking, how are these people not bleeding? How are they not dead? And this here, wow. I mean, now we know how it was done. It's still highly impressive, regardless. But Paul Wong, of course, who I mentioned earlier, carrying the ladder, but it still blew me away. And even this, I mean, we've all fallen off bikes, and it's not fun at all. Now this, I remember. Here we go in the Hong Kong Legends. Boom! Look at that. Now, that looks like Yuen Biao. And Bay Logan highlights this in the. I remember him highlighting. Look, oh my God, sorry, I'll get back. Boom! Oh! So this scene played. I remember playing this for the first time. My dad walked into the room and he watched this bike chase, and he pissed himself laughing at that moment when the saddle comes off, and it still gets me. It's fantastic. But yes, Bay mentioned that this doesn't look like Jackie swinging the bike, and then I remember thinking, I've seen this somewhere. I've seen a photo of Jackie doing this in a book. Oh my God, it's incredible. And sure enough, after looking, I finally found it. It was the 100% Jackie Chan, the Essential Companion, on page 109. It definitely looks like, I mean, it's pretty clear that it's Jackie Chan in the photo, but when you watch that scene in the movie, it totally looks like Yuen Biao. There's Rocky the way, boom, smack. So yes, perhaps between Jackie and Yuen Biao, they both tried the shot, and maybe Yuen Biao's just looked a wee bit better, but for sure, when you pause it, if you can get in close, it definitely looks like Yuen Biao for sure there. But yeah, this scene, taking it down here to this tea house, those guys smashing through that fence on their bike. I mean, they're hitting sand, soft sand below, but this fight, oh my God, I love this. Oh my word. It's just so beautifully done. Again, the kicks from Jackie, wonderful. And something nobody really talks about is Jackie's kicking, and we see it quite a bit in a lot of his movies, and I do honestly think his kicks are fantastic, but they're often ignored for many reasons, mostly down to just his usual defense moves as opposed to his attacks. But yes, for me, his kicks are incredible, and this just highlights that for sure. Wonderful fight scene. I mean, just one of the best, even though it's short and sweet in this tea house, one of my favorites. Definitive Jackie Chan, as I've said, just amazing. In fact, it was a good thing that this film was as groundbreaking as it was on release, coming in at a time when Jackie most certainly needed a boost in his career after films like Battle Creek Brawl and Cannonball Run failed to launch his Hollywood career, and Dragon Lord failed to deliver at the Asian box office, unfortunately. If Project A had not performed as well as it did, we may not have seen the majority of Jackie's classics that followed. And we just couldn't be having that now, could we? There's Paul Wong on screen once again, being ordered to cuff Jackie. And of course, this looks like they're right outside the very same gangster club that Jackie and Yuen Biao infiltrated earlier. Actually, before I forget, it was interesting to learn that in the past, co-writer Edward Tang had stated that both Sammo and Yuen Biao weren't actually a part of his original script, but Jackie wanted them in it for support as it was such a big project, and I'm glad he did. That said, I do wonder how the film would have turned out had they not appeared. Could have been the police story of period pieces. Of course, these last few scenes have all been leading up to one of the most beloved cinematic moments of Jackie's career, set in and around the historic Clock Tower, a tower we did manage to visit when in Hong Kong, obviously the real one, which wasn't too far from our hotel. That same hotel was next to the Shim Shat Choi shopping centre, used for the police story finale, with the front of the hotel and street used in Heart of Dragon. What a fun trip. Now, although here in the film the clock tower is completed and the date on the building says 1892, the actual construction of the real Kowloon Canton railway station and clock tower didn't begin until around 1913, with completion in 1915. And while today the station has since been demolished and moved, as such, the clock tower remains standing, gaining its declaration as a monument under the Antiques and Monuments Ordinance in 1990. Now, let us relish in this next incredible action scene. Do you know, I have to say, first off, that people get so excited about this drop from the clock tower, but for me, even this stunt where he has to scale the flagpole, where he has to climb up this freestanding flagpole to some ridiculous height. That's scarier in my eyes. But this, I mean, look at that scene. That's friggin' terrifying. I used to climb a lot of trees when I was younger, but I would not do this. Not a chance. Now this, of course, is come into a set piece in the clock tower itself. I don't know if that's how it really looks. It'd be pretty cool if it did, but I'm sure that this is all built on a set. This is a control piece, so to speak there. And it's kind of, I mean, there's a lot going on here, and you can see why Jackie wanted to take it inside. I think it's a wonderful scene, and yes, this is where we get to see the return of the great Lee Hoi-san, who's just amazing, of course. Now, although we saw him appear briefly earlier in the movie, this is where we get to see this wonderful late kung fu star get in on the action. But what a guy! I think this was the first film I ever saw him in, or recognise that I saw him in, but it is a very memorable fight, of course. And like many before him, Lee started life in the film industry at the Shaw Brothers Studios with a role in Chang Chi's fantastic Heroes 2 as a Tibetan fighter, going on to star in films like Big Brother Chang, The Spiritual Boxer, Executioners from Shaolin, and 36th Chamber of Shaolin, among many, many more, of course. But he also worked with many independent studios, eventually making a name for himself at Golden Harvest through Sammo's Warriors 2, Knockabout, Last Hurrah for Chivalry, The Young Master, The Prodigal Son, and on to Project A, all while still having a very healthy career over at Shaw Brothers up until about the mid-1980s. Now, since this, he has starred with Jackie in films like The Protector, Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars, Heart of the Dragon, Miracles, and returned like everyone else for a role in the sequel. Again, though, as a different character, of course. But what a battle. I mean, it's actually pretty brutal when you really look at it there. You can see the bruising, the blood on Jackie's wrist. And again, there's a darkness to Project A that we kind of forget about. And I'll probably touch on this later again. But there's a dark tone to it here. And I think that that's possibly thanks to Sammo Hung. There we have Danny Choi shooting off his gun as Jackie escapes, of course. Now we get to the big stunt piece of the film, or one of many, but the one everyone talks about. Now, supposedly, this stunt was not inspired by Harold Lloyd's short film Safety Last, but rather from a clock tower scene in 007's Moonraker, according to writer Edward Tang. He then scripted the fight in the clock tower, and this big stunt kind of stemmed from that naturally. And we all know the story. Jackie was nervous when it came to shooting this scene. It took about a week, and who would blame him? So he just held on with the cameras rolling until he lost his grip. Not once, not twice, but 3 times just to make sure he got the right take. What a madman. There we have Yuen to the rescue, obviously putting the bullet in Danny Chow's head, but it's too late. Here we go. I mean, this is just breathtaking. I don't know if it is stupid. I kind of want to say that it is, but when you see the outcome of, holy Jesus Christ, I mean, that neck should not have survived. And the second one, and then in the outtakes, we see a third one, and that just goes as bad. But the fact that Jackie can get to his feet here and walk away, and while talking his lines, while delivering his lines, is just insane. And this is what makes this man one of the greatest people ever. So we're now over an hour in, and to be honest, we haven't seen much pirate action, spent any time on the water, or really had any major notion that this is actually about pirates. In fact, there's been a real lack of pirates for a movie about pirates. Thankfully, we've still just under 45 minutes left, believe it or not, and it all kicks off here. And I say believe it or not because really, when you think about it, we've just sat through more excitement and amazing action in the last hour than a typical 2-hour Hollywood action movie offers. No joke. I do love how this has been shot, mind you. It's a very dramatic change in landscape after all the adventures in the city and such, and the colours really do pop. Now, believe it or not, This merry ship of Westerners coming into Hong Kong features the former Miss Spain and co-star of Wheels on Meals and Armour of God, Miss Lola Forner, in her first Jackie Chan movie. She looks somewhat different from the gorgeous girl we see in the other two movies, but apparently it is her. But I'll point her out when the time comes. For now, we get to enjoy the first real pirate attack in the movie as they swing and jump on board. I mean, they're a pretty jovial lot, to be honest. They don't seem really that bloodthirsty, attacking the boat to rape the food and eat the women. Of course, they do take down a few crew members after they've been shot at, but you can understand their logic. I mean, actually, looking back at this, I mean, there is a ton of them there. You really wouldn't have any escape if they got too close. I did always think, mind you, that it was a shame we never really got to see Jackie deliver any action on a big ship like this. That could have been very cool. I think the closest we ever got to that was his amazing fight on the luxury yacht in Dragons Forever, although about 5 years later. Oh, that's a nice stunt. It's actually quite a high fall, really, when you think about it. But yes, such a shame we didn't get that fight out on the water. That would have been nice. I think we get something like that in the very underrated Once Upon a Time in China 5, mind you. Now, I'm going to get back to this pirate with the axe because he's worth talking about. A fantastic Korean kung fu actor. But first, the formidable and legendary Dick Wei as Pirate Chief Lo Sampo. Does this man need an introduction? One of the greatest bad guys of Hong Kong action cinema, without question. Oh, and there she is, apparently, Lola Forner in her first Hong Kong role, but I don't know, I struggle to see the resemblance. So yes, Korean actor Kwon Young-moon, but you might know him as Best Kwon because there's nothing like self-confidence. Starting off in the early 70s, Kwon has appeared in films such as The Shaolin Plot with Sammo Hung, Jackie's Master with Cracked Fingers, although the newer footage, if I remember properly, with Jackie again in Dragon Lord and Fearless Hyena 2, and classics like Killer Constable, Return to the 36th Chamber, My Young Auntie, Kung Fu Zombie, Ninja in the Dragon's Den, and Sammo Hung's The Dead and the Deadly. So while Jackie, or Dragon Ma, creeps about the place here, listening in on plans, how to stop Sampo, etc., I want to bring Robert Klaus into the conversation. Now, Klaus, of course, is the man behind Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon and Jackie Chan's Battle Creek Brawl, aka The Big Brawl. Now, we all know the story. Jackie had headed out to America on a self-imposed exile after signing up with Golden Harvest, which had caused a huge dispute with Lo Wei, the director of his films like New Fist of Fury, Spiritual Kung Fu, Dragon Fist, etc., who kind of threatened Jackie with the triads for breaking his contract. So while he was in the States, Raymond Chow called upon the same US team that delivered Enter the Dragon to see if they could come up with a project for Jackie Chan that would both introduce him to Hollywood as the next Hong Kong action hero and do big business. Of course, that project became Battle Creek Brawl, which failed to do both, but is still regarded by many older fans today as an entertaining piece. But legend has it that Robert Klaus was tossing around a few ideas as to what they could make on this venture. Now, one such idea, and one that may just have well sat in the back of Jackie's mind on his return to Hong Kong in 1982, was to have Chan the Man star in a pirate-themed action-adventure film called Blood Island. The story was to be about a young Chinese orphan who is saved and raised by pirates and his adventures on the high seas, with Jackie obviously playing the adult version of the orphan pirate. I mean, it sounds pretty cool and could well have been fun seeing Jackie playing a good-natured pirate, more like an updated version of Ti Lung in Chang Chi's aforementioned 1973 film The Pirate, but it was not meant to be, and we got Battle Creek Brawl. However, in my eyes, Klaus wasn't that good of a director, to be honest, and Enter the Dragon's success was most certainly not because of him. So, in a way, I'm kind of glad that we didn't get Jackie in Blood Island, as we may never have had Project A possibly. But, jumping ahead to 1994, and a film called King of the Sea hits the Hong Kong cinema screens, although really not for too long, as it only took in just over 268,000 Hong Kong dollars, which is about £25,000 today. Anyway, King of the Sea told the tale of a young Chinese orphan raised by pirates, his action-filled adventures on the high seas, and how he became the King of the Sea, in a nutshell. How very odd, I hear you say, and yes, it may have well been coincidental. This time though, it wasn't about Jackie, and instead starred the man that should have been the next Jackie Chan, forgotten Hong Kong action star Conan Lee as the leading man Chung Bo-chi. Starring alongside him is the lovely Cecilia Yip, Brit kicker and fan fave Mark Houghton, and the wonderful Ken Lo, just fresh off the success of Jackie's very own Drunken Master 2. Supposedly, it's the only film ever directed by a Chung Kwok-ching, and is extremely hard to find. I've only ever saw a couple of clips over the years, but could this have been the Project A3 we all wanted? Just imagine it. Jackie's Dragon Ma and Conan's Bo-chi are separated at birth. It makes sense. Dragon Ma was brought up in an orphanage where he met Sammo Hung's Fae, and Chung Bo-chi was picked up as a young orphan by pirates. They genuinely look alike, so that lends itself to the plot, and it makes a lot more sense than Big Arnie and Danny DeVito did in Twins. But with one growing up as a coast guard that fights the pirates, and the other as China's King of the Sea, fate brings them together one last time as enemies, unless they can figure out their unfortunate past and figure things out as brothers. Yes, let's do it! Project A3 needs to happen, and Conan Lee can make his return to Hong Kong cinema. So yes, let's do it! Project A3 needs to happen, and Conan Lee can finally make his return to Hong Kong cinema. But seriously though, how amazing would that be? Like, Jackie's now the big chief at the station, coming up to retirement alongside Yuen Biao's Hong Tin-chi. There's one more mission before they sign off, which leads them into dangerous territory. Faye somehow becomes involved with more shady deals. Oh, it would be great fun! Besides, in the last lot of weeks, we've heard nothing but news that Jackie is returning as the Asian Condor in Armour of God 4, so you never know. Stranger things have happened. Oh, I'm getting carried away. Maybe I should just write it, manifest that shit, and get it out there. Anyway, back to the film. The original Project A, and Dragon Ma has just had the Coast Guards reinstated to set out on their mission to take down the Great Sampo. I love this look on Lau Hok-soon's face. Sadness, confusion, shocked and proud to see his men coming towards him. He pulls it off wonderfully. Just such a shame he never got to see the finished film. That does sadden me. But what a film to go out on. You can never imagine them thinking back then, oh, this film will be watched over and over for decades to come, and people will be talking about me for years. Just crazy. Again, we hear Michael Lai's wonderfully orchestrated score, getting the blood flowing there. Such an amazing soundtrack all round, but it still stands as one of my favourites for sure. Oh, I do love this next act. Such a fantastic setup. I mean, you forget sometimes just how huge this movie really is with the amount of set pieces, scenery, and the locations. They are massive. And this particular scene actually looks a little more suited to Project A Part 2, mind you, although we don't get to see Yuen Biao acting drunk in the sequel. Of course, this is all part of the plan to kidnap Mr. Chu and take him in for questioning. Well, illegal questioning, I suppose. But Wong Wai looks pretty dapper, doesn't he? I mean, he's always done throughout the film so far, and I guess everyone kind of does, thanks to costume designer Chu Sheng-shi, who, honestly, has had a pretty damn good career by the looks of things. Starting in the early 1970s, she, and I'm just bluntly assuming Chu is female, went straight to work with Golden Harvest as the costume designer and wardrobe manager for films like The Invincible 8, The Blade Spares None, The Angry River, and The Comet Strikes. Then came all the Bruce Lee flicks, including Enter the Dragon, more low-way flicks like Man Called Tiger, Back Alley Princess, and The Hurricane, and worked with a young Sammo in the past on many of those aforementioned movies, but also The Association, The Man from Hong Kong, The Devil's Treasure, The Skyhawk, When Taekwondo Strikes, and his directorial debut, Iron-Fisted Monk. She was still around to dress Sammo and Yuen Biao in Warriors 2, Knockabout, The Magnificent Butcher, The Prodigal Son and Zoo Warriors, worked on encounters of the spooky kind, The Dead and the Deadly, The Champions, and other classics like The Sword, Duel to the Death, Security Unlimited, and so much more. In fact though, Chu has pretty much worked with and for all the big names of Golden Harvest, even with the young Jackie Chan in films like None But the Brave, All in the Family, No End of Surprises, John Woo's Hand of Death, then on to The Young Master and Winners and Sinners. From Project A, she would stick around for a few more years, returning to work on the sequel, as well as Chan flicks such as Wheels on Meals, The Protector, Police Story 1 and 2, Miracles, then Naughty Boys and The Inspector Wears Skirts 1 and 2, which he produced of course. I mean, how amazing to be a part of so many incredible films and never have to put your life in danger to please your audience. Now this scene has always stuck out to me. People more often than not call Jackie the Clown Prince of Kung Fu and rank Project A up there as one of his top action comedy titles. But then you look at the likes of this scene and others throughout the film that really do show a very serious side to Jackie. But it's a fantastically directed scene and Jackie is just brutal. Like you almost feel sorry for Mr. Cho. And now we have Jackie making his move, disguised as Mr. Cho, on his way to meet the pirate Sammo, with seemingly longer hair at this point of the film, which is strange. Again though, another wonderfully set up scene. Like, just look at how much is going on there in the background. It really does feel very genuine. I mean, Jackie talks about Miracles being his most accomplished as a director, but I genuinely feel that this is as close as. Now, the guy he's talking to, the boatman, is popular bit player and regular bad guy Tong Kam Tong, starting life in film with small roles in titles like Heads for Sale, The Shadow Whip, Invincible 8 and The Blade Spares None. Kam Tong went on to appear in about 70 films, showing up in Hapkido, Hand of Death, The Secret Rivals, The Story of Wu Viet, Profile in Anger, and then some. Actually, you know, I was just thinking about this when I watched Project A few weeks back, but this particular scene reminds me quite a bit of a similar setup in Police Story 3 Super Cop, where Jackie and Michelle are on the boat. Although they didn't have Sammo creeping out of a barrel, which actually would have been hilarious. But yeah, I wonder, was this scene in Jackie's mind when making Super Cop? Was he paying homage to this scene? Or was it just purely coincidental? Anyway, this is pretty much the first time we see Dragon Ma on a boat, a bigger boat, in this film about pirates. It only took well over an hour, for God's sake. Of course, we do get to see some more pirate action in part 2, although only really through the exploits of a ragtag group of them who escaped the big showdown at the end of this and set out for revenge against Dragon Ma. Although it does make me think, and why Raymond Chow never thought of this opportunity is beyond me. But hear me out. So, in Project A Part 2, Dragon is reassigned to the police force after defeating the Pirate King and then sent to the Saiwan district to iron out crime and corruption. Still Hong Kong, but in the Western District. So we know how his story goes in that equally entertaining and incredible sequel. But what of Yuen Biao and Sammo Hung's characters? Why did they not get a spin-off movie that would have given us more to love and, quite possibly, got them all excited for a third one? Ah! I mean, I'd love to have seen the two of them go off on new adventures, Yuen Biao busting more crime rings with the Hong Kong police force, and Sammo cheekily rising to be a top Hong Kong crime boss, but kind of like Jackie in Miracles, helping Biao when he can. Oh my God, I absolutely would have pushed for this had I worked for Golden Harvest back then. But one can dream, I guess. And as we know, those days are long gone. Although I still stand by my pitch for Project A3 featuring Conan Lee. Perhaps I should take some time out from the Invincible Asia YouTube channel to create a comic book based on the film sequels we missed out on when these guys were in their prime. Now there's a thought. So while we've had a nice boat tour of some gorgeous coastal areas and cave formations as Jackie makes his way to Sampo's lair, we'll start to see a change in the rocks once he enters. obviously since they were created as part of the controlled set. Now, they still look pretty amazing and convincing, but when you've been to Universal Studios as much as I have, these kind of things really start to jump out at you more. Of course, some are better looking than others, but can you imagine trying to create the explosive end battle of this film in a real cave? I mean, there wouldn't be anything left. But this is absolutely a great achievement in terms of set building for sure. Now, in amongst this band of merry sea traders are a number of recognisable faces from this era of Hong Kong cinema. A lot of them just simple background players and extras, but you also have the majority of Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung's stunt team in there, some of whom have already appeared throughout as cops and or gangsters. So as the following scenes play through, you might just spot the likes of Jackie Chan's stunt team member Benny Lai, the menacing-looking Chan Shi-fai, a face you'll definitely know in one of his earlier roles before going on to star in The Protector, Police Story, A Better Tomorrow, Yes Madam, and Shanghai Shanghai with Sammo and Yuen. Chin Gar-lok doubles up, as does In Kit Kung, two very productive men of Hong Kong cinema. Longtime Jackie Chan stunt team member Chris Lee, the director of Cynthia Can's Queen's High and Simon Yam's Crystal Fortune Run, is also in there, as is Sammo Hung film regular Ng Ming Kan, who would later direct Ghost Legend, Spiritual Trinity and Deadful Melody with Yuen. You'll also see Lam Fo Wai, who's not too dissimilar looking to Sammo Hung's own brother and has appeared in almost 130 films to date, from Five Element Ninjas to Police Story 3 Super Cop and Wing Chun to Black Mask. But the film also marks the debut appearance of bit player and action director Poon Chung as a pirate, a regular face of many Godfrey Ho ninja flicks, while Jackie Chan's stunt team member Rocky Lai makes an appearance and prolific extra and bit player Lo Wai ends his career on a high. But now we should talk about this scene stealer right here, the amazing Dick Wei, who, at the time of recording, is about 73 years young. Born in Taiwan in 1952, this much-loved martial artist and actor won many titles through his sporting career before serving in the Taiwanese army, of which he would reach the rank of captain. It was here that he would become an instructor of Taekwondo, eventually moving on to do the same for the Taiwanese police force. But it would soon be after he opened his martial arts school in Taipei that Wei would then be spotted by legendary Shaw Brothers director Chang Cheh, who was impressed enough with his screen test that he and Run Run Shaw signed him up to the Shaw Brothers studio. Of course, this would mean relocating to Hong Kong and, from 1977, would go on to make a number of films for the studio, often with the Venom mob under Chang Cheh, from the Brave Archer movies to the Five Venoms, Crippled Avengers and The Kid with the Golden Arm, but also classics like Avenging Eagle, To Kill a Mastermind, Killer Constable and more. In the early 1980s, Dick would join Sammo's team and sign with Golden Harvest, where he would get thrust into some of his finest ever roles, which helped secure him the fanbase he still has today. This began with the Sammo Hung directed and very awesome Yuen classic, The Prodigal Son, one of my all-time favourites, which kicked off a busy decade for him under the legendary filmmaker. Roles in Carry On Pickpocket, Zoo, Warriors from Magic Mountain, Winners and Sinners, and Yuen Biao's The Champions would come sandwiched between that and Project A, which, for me, probably gave him one of the best roles of his career. I mean, honestly, I just love him here as Sampo, and I only wish we had seen more of him throughout. Saying that, he certainly makes up for his lack of screen time with the performance that he does give. I do believe that his character was loosely based on a real famous Hong Kong or Chinese pirate of this era, perhaps as T. Lung's was in The Pirate before that. After this, of course, Wei would fast become one of the most recognised and much-loved bad guys of Hong Kong cinema, delivering show-stopping fight scenes in films like My Lucky Stars, Mismatched Couples, Dragon Fight, Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars, Heart of the Dragon, Yes Madam, Millionaire's Express, Eastern Condors, and so much more. In fact, between film and TV, he didn't really retire from acting until around 2016, with roles in over 130 movies throughout his 4 decades in the business. Actually, in 1991, Dick tried his hand at directing and delivered a fun piece with Visa to Hell, co-starring Kara Hui and Chin Soo-ho. He would next direct A Killing Order in 1994, which was more of a heroic bloodshed action flick, although stepped back from directing after that. But about 22 years later, he would give it one more try with Singoi Daigoi, co-starring the great Tony Liu, or Lao Wing, from Bruce Lee's Big Boss and Fist of Fury. I've yet to see it, but apparently it was supposed to be a loose remake of Sammo's Encounters of a Spooky Kind. And speaking of Sammo Hung, over the years it's often been said that he was as much the director of Project A as Jackie was, and you can kind of see that. Whether it was intentional or official, I should say that you just know Jackie would take any advice given to him from his big brother. Yes, Jackie had given us 3 fantastic directorial efforts so far with Fearless Hyena, The Young Master and Dragon Lord, but Sammo had trebled that with The Iron-Fisted Monk, finishing Bruce Lee's Game of Death, Enter the Fat Dragon, Warriors 2, Knockabout, The Victim, Encounters of the Spooky Kind, The Prodigal Son, Carry On Pickpocket, and the brilliant Winners and Sinners. But he had also been the action director of 50 films in the run-up to Project A, so it's quite possible that with a production this huge, and it really was massive, let's face it, that Raymond Chow just wanted to make sure Jackie got things right and trusted Sammo to guide him in doing so. Anyway, I've always loved this part of the film with these guys infiltrating the pirate island, all dressed in black and taking down the enemy before they can alert their men. It does remind me very much of a similar scene in Enter the Dragon when Bruce sneaks out at night, dressed in a black catsuit of sorts, and kicks ass to get some answers. It is interesting though, talking about this scene paying homage of sorts to Enter the Dragon, but if you really think about it, Jackie would kind of do the same to this movie with later projects in some respects. Police Story, for example, has many similarities to Project A in that Jackie's characters are in law enforcement, with both Dragon Ma and Cao Ku coming across as fun heroes with a bit of an edge to them, not afraid to break the rules and step on the toes of their superiors. Here we have the stunt from a height involving the flagpole and a fall from the clock tower, and in Police Story we see Jackie deliver a similarly huge stunt by sliding down the light pole in the shopping centre. Of course, that same pole is now long gone, I have to state. As I mentioned, our hotel in Hong Kong was right beside the Tsim Sha Tsui shopping centre where the Police Story finale was filmed, and I was so excited to get in there and see it, but I did come away slightly disappointed because it was pretty unrecognisable and mainly offices now. Anyway, the other Jackie film I see paying homage to Project A is Armour of God, with this final act coming up as the scene in question. Now, like Project A, Jackie infiltrates the enemy's secret lair, and while there's an all-out incredible end battle, dynamite is used to comical effect, resulting in the place crumbling and an explosive finale. And I'm sure there are plenty of other moments throughout later films of his that Project A possibly inspired or he wanted to revisit, but I just haven't really thought about them all at this moment. But you can totally understand why. Project A was such a groundbreaking production for Jackie and all involved. I mean, I honestly can't think of any part of it that really doesn't stand out. Everyone gives great performances, with Jackie going on to get nominated for Best Actor at the next year's Film Awards. The pacing is fantastic, the sets, the costumes, the production values are outstanding. I mean, if you go back and look at many other Hong Kong films from 1983, Project A really stands out as one of the most accomplished and polished of the lot. The storyline and narrative works wonderfully, and of course, the action is incredible, winning Jackie and his team the Best Action Award at the 4th Hong Kong Film Awards, which was well deserved. Now, I've often seen Project A called Jackie's best movie by many and noted as the quintessential Hong Kong action film, and I would tend to agree on many levels. It's absolutely in my top 10 without a doubt, and even after all these years, I never tire of watching it. Of course, as I may have already mentioned, I mean a lot has went on since I started this, But its success was so great in Japan that the emperor himself demanded a sequel from Jackie Chan. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Wait a minute though, didn't we recently have Donald Trump trying to do something similar for Rush Hour 4? Is that as impressive? I don't think so. And I think I forgot to say about the title itself. It was indeed taken from a real Project A setup in the early 1900s to catch the merciless pirates around Hong Kong by British and Hong Kong officials. I mean, who knows if it went this way and proved to be as much fun, but how cool to think. Perhaps it should have said at the start of this, based on a true story. And I also never really talked about the deleted scenes from this version. I mean, you can now watch the complete edit via the new 88 Films 4K release of the film, but for this particular version we're watching, there's about 10 minutes cut, which I always found strange because some of those include action from Jackie and Yuen. So if you cast your minds back to when Dragon Ma and his Coast Guards are transferred to the Hong Kong police and put under the watchful eye of Biao's Inspector Hong, in this cut we get to see some training with grenades, showering, etc. But they oddly cut out the 2.5 minute scene of all in question training in a dojo, with Inspector Hong proving his authority through force, setting an example with Mars that enrages Dragon. Of course, he speaks up and is offered the chance to tango, which results in a fast cut and impressive match between the two. I mean, why cut this and leave a few other, less exciting training scenes in? It's beyond me. The next follows another of those exact training scenes, the one where Mars, again, clearly Biao's character had it in for him, admits to laughing and then is dragged off to be shot. So we see Paul Wong and Shin Kar-lok return to say that Mars had fainted before they could do anything. So this next deleted scene continues after that. We see Dragon and his squad having dinner in the police canteen, saddened at the loss of their friend, with Dragon encouraging everyone to pay up their debts to him so that he doesn't haunt them. And meanwhile, Mars slowly appears in the canteen, obviously tired after cleaning the toilets, and Taibo thinks he's seeing a ghost. Mars comes to the table and sits beside Dragon, collects his money, and begins eating. It's a pretty funny scene, but hey. After that, we return to the brothel, where we had a quick glimpse of Jackie getting out of the bath before Sammo made his deal with the gangsters. Now what we didn't see, however, was Sammo getting out of his bath first, and Dragon, or Jackie, staying in the water until all the hookers leave the room. As he's about to get out, that small clip we did see, one of the gangsters comes into the room and Jackie hides under the water. The deal between Sammo and the gangsters plays out, only this time, Jackie is caught snooping and another fantastic fight breaks out. But as Sammo pretends that Jackie is part of the plan, Jackie storms off and Sammo brings in a hooker to make peace. Jackie tries to talk her into going to the station to let his boss know about the hidden rifles, but it turns out that she can't speak. Again, crazy to think that more action was cut from the film, but nice to know that we finally got that full uncut version eventually released. It is strange how they decide these things really, isn't it? Let's face it, we've all been in this position. Well, probably not facing certain death or a small army like Dragon Ma is, but you know when you've been talking shit about someone and they walk in, or you've called into work sick and been out that night and your boss walks into the club, or they're standing behind you when you're discussing how bad a manager they really are. Kind of like that. But I love how Dragon quickly makes it all work for him, ghosting Lee Hoi-san and making him think that he's a little nuts while truthfully claiming that this isn't the real Mr. Cho. It's pretty funny overall. Of course, these two got to trade some pretty sweet moves with each other in The Young Master a few years earlier. Now, that was a great fight. This was actually quite a busy year for Lee, who had starred in a total of 7 films overall, with Project A being his last of 1983 and his only one for Golden Harvest. The rest were all for Shaw Brothers, and he must have been flat out. He played a monk in Tongai's Shaolin Prince alongside Elvis Choi Kam Kong and Lam Fai Wong, with Ti Lung and Derek Yee and Jason Pai Pao playing the leads. He followed this by playing a thug in Lagar Wing's action comedy Play Catch, starring Alan Tam and David Chang. The very fun Shaolin and Wu-Tang followed that, directed by and starring the great Gordon Liu, again playing a monk alongside Elvis Choi Kam Kong. Then came the absolutely insane Demon of the Loot, one of my favourites, recently restored and released as part of the Shaw Scope Volume 4. Here, he plays a character called Red-Haired Evil, this bonkers kung fu master with wild, bright red hair that he uses as a weapon. He returned to play another monk or abbot right after that for Tong Gai once again in Shaolin Intruders with Derek Yee and Jason Pai Pao again, then delivered a more serious piece in Lam Nai Choi's gritty Men from the Gutter, again with Jason Pai Pao, and a film I just got in this week on Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome. But hey, Hong Kong actors, eh? In the 1970s, 80s and 90s, they were the busiest people in the world. So now kicks off the warm-up to the final showdown. 10 minutes of crazy fight action and stunt work that still impresses today. And of course, comedy. Obviously, Yuen Biao caught on to Jackie's lead by making Li Hoi San take the fall for guiding the police to the pirates, and the only way he can prove his innocence is death. But if you look quickly, you'll see that Dick Wei, or Sammo, has already slashed him across the back as a punishment. What a brutal way to go, and he seemed like such a nice man. Now in hindsight, and I talked about this earlier, Project A does have some darker, more violent moments than you would expect in a Jackie Chan movie, considered by most as a light-hearted action comedy. Of course, Danny Chow took a bullet to the head before Jackie fell from the clock tower. Lee has just been brutally killed off, and now we get to see Biao and Mars send the pirates flying by putting bullets in them at close range. Although it all looks pretty impressive, if I'm to be honest. And here we go. Now, of course, those guys that just went flying back were assisted by wires. They weren't actually shot, of course not. But I mean, what an impressive finale. It is just fantastic. And as I said, there is a hint of darkness in this that has been shown up in a number of fight scenes throughout here. Like there's a lot going on. The stabbing as well. Like it's something you really wouldn't see in later Jackie Chan films apart from his more serious works. Like, let's be honest, Best Kwan there coming in with some fantastic kicks. And of course, that moment that Jackie reveals his true self here when he takes Sam Pao down with a sweep, it is just incredible. I absolutely love this. Here we go. Ready? Boom! Holy shit balls. I mean, that is some impact to hit the ground with. But it really just like triggers Sam Pao. He's out for blood now. I mean, Jackie was getting away with this. Jackie was ready to walk out there free as a bird, but no, it gets screwed over. And again, now what we see here is just incredible. Prime Jackie kicking ass, flipping all around here. And there's another stab, as I say. Best Kwan giving a tremendous kick. Poof, oh my God almighty. But yeah, Jackie does fantastic. And I think, to be honest, you kind of forget what Yuen Biao is delivering in this fight scene here. But he is tremendous. And we do get some acrobatics. Of course we do. Here we go. Another kick. Absolutely gorgeous. Although I'm surprised they cut from that there. It would have been nice as a wide shot. But yeah, and then Sammo joining in now. We're getting him the crack in the head is fantastic. But yeah, I mean, all of them really stand out. And Sammo, to some respects, takes a step back here. He doesn't come in as the big brother that knows how to fight best. He does leave that to Jackie and Yuen Biao. But in a way, he does become a bit of a scene stealer. And these scenes with the grenades, and again, reminds me somewhat of the later production of Armor of God, when we have this similar kind of thing going on there. But Mars is just wrecking the place. And of course, earlier, Taibo was praising him for being so brave in dying for his country. And when Mars offered the chance for them to swap roles, he was like, no thanks. But yeah, so Sammo hasn't really known what the hand grenade or what these are for. He thought it was a hammer. So now he's really excited to get his hands on these. So yes, for me, this still stands strong as one of Jackie Chan's best grand finales of any film, and it's something I miss today, although we still get them. The energy's, oh Jesus, see him landing right on his face and then his wee red hat just popping off there. Oh my God. But yes, granted, he is in his 70s, and I'm a great advocate for reminding people how old Jackie Chan is. He shouldn't need to deliver this kind of energy that he did 40 years ago. It should not be expected, but that is the curse of film. These people don't age, and it's a good reason why we like going back to these, I suppose, because as much as we hope and expect to see it happen in newer movies today, although The Shadow's Edge was as close as, oh my God, look at that chair. Like, what kind of animal or person had to die to make, oh Jesus, to make a chair of bones that size? That is just crazy. But yes, the energy here is phenomenal. And I mean, out of the 4,000 plus collection of movies, oh fucking hell, that flick and that fall, that hurts me whenever he lands. Every time I watch this, I just cringe. And here we have scene stealer Sammo Hung coming in, giving Dick Wei a run for his money. And again, you know, when you watch Dick Wei and you see him in most movies, you think he's a very solid, staunch kind of bad guy that really isn't into the more athletic and acrobatic side of Kung Fu. And he does pretty damn well in this. I'm sure there's certain scenes where he is doubled, but he does pretty damn well. And of course, Sampo, as the character himself, has that stiff neck, is bent over there. Look at this. Look at the speed of them. And Dick's kicks. There's an idea for a book or a movie. But Dick's kicks are incredible. Boom, look at that. I mean, he could have took the pillar down. But yeah, you can see that the three of these guys, they really do need to team up, because Sampo is so friggin' powerful, and Dick was the right person. Look at this kick. Boom, Jesus Christ. Now, apparently this pretty much damaged Dick Wei for the rest of the shoot. And I have a funny feeling that after a few blows here, this is why the fight is cut short. But I mean, could you imagine Sammo just landing on your back with a double kick? Of course it's going to hurt. Of course it's going to damage it. Next to that, he jumps on you. I mean, I think Dick Wei went to hospital after this. He had to. But yeah, I mean, he kind of was out of commission after Sammo kicking him there. He did get injured pretty bad. And again, sorry, I need to interrupt myself, because this stunt here, boom, now look at the three of them, how they all land. It looks pretty damn painful. You should wind this back. You should check this out. Slow motion for each of them. Although I do think Sammo is doubled, to be honest. It kind of didn't look like him as he came over the table there. So anyway, there we go. The amazing Project A, starring Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung and Yuen Biao, a groundbreaking film that set in motion for many people like myself a true love for Hong Kong cinema and for those involved. As I say though, please avoid that newer US edit from Dimension at all costs, and always go original language and subtitles for the best experience. I don't know how many copies and versions I have of this film now, 10 or 11, but for me, the 4K extended edition will always be the one I go to. Also, never go sailing with Mars or any of these guys, because you'll never get there. It says a lot about their Coast Guard training, really, doesn't it? Anyway, that's about it, and all that's left to enjoy, really, is this upcoming wild selection of NG shots and bloopers. Of course, this would be the first time Jackie Chan would do this at the end of his films, after being inspired by Cannonball Run, which he had worked on a couple of years before, and how they had done the same thing. And I'm glad he did, because they're always a highlight of any Jackie Chan film, really, especially his classics. I find that many of his later ones weren't really as exciting, especially the Hollywood titles, and focused less on stunts and fights going wrong, and more on fluffing lines or other actors messing up. But hey, it's a small gripe really. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out the alternate outtakes and closing credits sequence available on most Blu-ray releases, because it gives you some alternate shots of that jump from the bike over the ladder, the vertical wall climb, and the fall from the clock, as well as others, including the stunt on the bar top. But yes, what a ride. Genuinely one of my favorites. And if you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching and listening. I hope it was all worth it. Anyway, I'm George Clark from Invincible Asia. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for all of your continued support. Until next time, enjoy your Kung Fu, and I'll see you soon.